Hey guys, so I'm going to tell you about art games that you can use to keep up your art practice, and they're fun too. So first I'm going to show you how to play before and after. This one's pretty easy. You play it with a friend, and the first player draws a before, so they draw a part of something. So I might draw the front of an animal. Here's a little dog. So that's the before. Okay, and now my partner is going to come, player 2, and they're going to draw an after. So they're going to add on whatever they want. And they might make it realistic and draw the second half of the dog, or they might say, oh, I'm going to do something silly. It'd make a fish dog. Okay, and so you can do this lots of different ways. You might have player 1 draw a bowl, and player 2 puts the noodles in it. You know, or player 1 draws a shape of a house, and player 2 puts the details on it. But again, this stuff can end up being crazy too. It doesn't have to be realistic. Player 1 might draw something and player 2 might make it completely crazy. Okay, so that's how you play before and after. Next we have make a scene. So make a scene, you have a section. It could be a whole page, but have a section. You say, okay, we're going to make a scene. And it can be 2 or more players. So what they do is they start by adding something to the scene. So let's say I'm player 1, I'm gonna add a table. So round table. Okay, we'll put some plates on it. Okay, so player 2 would come in and say, what am I gonna add to the scene? I'm gonna add a person sitting at the table. Okay, then another player will come in. Either the first player will come back or a new player, and they'll add something else. So they'll say, okay, I'm going to draw somebody sneaking up on the person that you drew. Of course, I'm drawing all this stuff really fast. You would take your time to make it really fun and interesting. Right, and so you keep going until you have like a whole picture with a background and everything that you took turns drawing, and you end up telling a crazy story. Something's going on. Okay, next is the doodle game. The doodle game is a fun, simple game where you can play this by yourself or with a neighbor, where you draw a scribble, and then either you make it into something or your partner makes it into something. So like if I turn this, get it from different directions, I can decide what I think it looks like. And so I turned it into a bird catching a worm. I actually have some I made of this game before, so you can see I did a scribble and I turned it into a bulldog. I did this scribble and I turned it into a lizard. I did this scribble and I turned it into a cliff sunset picture. Okay, let's see. Next is Exquisite Corpse. Exquisite Corpse is a game where you actually fold paper. So for example, you have a piece of paper and you fold it so that you can only see one part of it. So I'm seeing one part, and on the first part I would draw like a head. Some sort of head of a creature or a person, or whatever. Okay, Okay. And then I would mark where the neck is. And I would go to the next section, but I would hide the head. So then my neighbor is going to make a body using these marks. So say, okay, I'm going to draw a wolf body because I don't know what the head looks like, right? I'm the second player. So I've got like a furry wolf body. And then they make marks again to show the next player where the legs are going to go. And then they'll make legs. So maybe they're like, well, I want robot legs. You know. And then when you unfold the whole thing, you get a crazy creature. So I have a few that kids have made before. This one turned out to be a robot. This one turned out to have a dragon head, a person body. So that's how you play Exquisite Corpse. The monster game. Monster game's a group game where one person is the teller, and so they're going to say how to draw the monster. So they might say something like, draw an oval for its head, and everybody's going to draw ovals. And they might say, draw a rectangle for its body. And so I might draw the rectangle like this, and someone else might draw the rectangle tall. I don't know, the teller didn't tell me how, so I just get to pick, right? And the teller might say, it has 6 tentacles. And I put them there, but someone else might put them all around the body. You know, and they keep going until they say how many, you know, eyes, mouth. They say everything about the monster. You know, if it has a tail, if it has wings, whatever. If it has polka dots, if it has stripes. Now, you can't ask about their description. So if they're describing it, you can't be like, oh, but what do the tentacles look like, or what direction do they go? You have to guess that part. But you can ask if the monster has something. So for example, someone's told me this monster, but it doesn't have a neck. So I don't know, is the head just floating? And so I could ask, does the monster have a neck? And if they say yes, then I can add the neck. Now they might say, yes, it has a long neck. And then I have to be like, okay. And then I could have to make it fit with what I've already drawn. So there's my crazy monster with a long neck. Yeah, so that's the monster game. I've got some examples from when playing it before. Some weird monsters. So after everybody follows the directions and draws the monsters, the describer, the one who was saying what the monsters looks like, gets to look at all the monsters, and then they get to pick which monster looks most like their imagination, and that person will be the monster describer next. Okay, another describing game, just called Describe It, is where you describe a real thing. So not an imaginary monster, an actual object. So for example, you might describe a wagon, but the describer never says what the thing is, and they can't say any descriptive words like, you know, if you were going to do a dog, you couldn't say dog feet. You know, that would be cheating. You can only use shapes and line words. So if I was the describer and I was describing a wagon, I might say draw a rectangle. And so my person drawing might draw a rectangle. But if I don't say draw a rectangle horizontal or flat or long ways, they might draw a rectangle like this. And then later, whenever I get to look at the picture, I'm going to be like, that's not what wagons look like. So I might say draw a rectangle. I might say draw a circle on the rectangle. Well, they might do this. Really, I wanted the circle down here, right? So you have to describe what you want the picture to look like without looking at their picture. And so you'll get some crazy pictures. The drawer gets to guess what the describer was describing. So I might, you know, I might have been like, okay, draw a rectangle, put 2 circles on the rectangle. Okay, guess what it is? And my drawer might be like, is it a brick? And I'd be like, no. And then if I look at that, I understand why they said it though, right? It looks kind of like a brick. So that's describe it, where someone describes what a real life object looks like, but with only shape and line words. And it's actually pretty tricky. Next, you can play one thing, where you draw one thing lots of ways. I have one here that I did. I actually kind of cheated on this one, because I didn't just do one thing, I did birds and fish. But you can see you fill up the page with one thing over and over again, lots of different ways. So the challenge to one thing is that you can't draw the one thing the same way over and over again, right? So like if I draw a rabbit, if I'm like, my one thing is rabbits, I can't just do this exact rabbit face 90 times till I fill up the page. That's not very fun. So I'd have to be like, okay, a rabbit, I'm going to draw one this way. Going like this. Okay, I'm going to draw one in a different style, like with this kind of ear and this kind of eye. You know, so one thing is about filling up the page with the same thing over and over again, but still making it interesting by changing up the one thing. Then you got in a jar. In a jar is pretty simple. It's kind of like before and after, except instead of having the object just be whatever, you always start with some kind of container. So for example, I might start by drawing a jar like this, and then I could play with myself, or I can have someone else go, and the next person would say, okay, what is in that jar? And it could be something realistic, like a beetle, full of bugs in this jar. Or it can be unrealistic, like, let's draw another one here. What's in this jar? Oh, it's a little tiny person. Help me, I'm stuck in a jar. Right, and technically it doesn't all have to be the same kind of jar. It could be cups. You know, there could be like stuff in the cups. This one's got a little ship in it, and a whale on the bottom. It could be a box. Just anything that you can put stuff inside of. That's how you play in a jar. Tiny things. I have a big poster I did of tiny things. So tiny things is just a challenge game that you can play by yourself or with a friend, where you fill your page with tiny things. So you can see here, I have done that to this poster. It's very big. It's hard to show it to you because it's so big. And so yeah, you will just challenge yourself to not draw the same thing twice, to draw different things until you fill the whole page with things. Lots of tiny things. And the last game is No More Space. You can actually play it with the page you've been playing other games on. So you can see here I've got this page that's got some crazy drawings on it because we've been playing games. And so what I would do is start taking the sections in between drawings and making even more drawings until the whole thing is super packed. So for example, I say like right here, I've got a little section. What could fit in this section? How about a squid? Right? And so I've added something to start filling up the space. You know, I've got space over here. What could go over here? I'm just going to draw a dog. Yeah, and so No More Space is fun for when you get kind of to the end and you can't fit any more of the other games. It's a challenge to fill up your page. And you and your friends can take turns doing that too. Find a section, challenge each other, say, okay, what would fit in this section? A chicken. Right, and so you keep doing that until your whole page gets filled up. I have a poster of one of those I did too. So this is the kind of thing you can get with no more space. It's so full. There's no more space. I'm gonna have a little one. Let's see. Over here. So you can see, it doesn't have to make sense. It can just be whatever crazy stuff fits until you completely fill up the picture. Alright guys, have fun playing these games. Bye.